Hello, Joy Starters. This is Kim, Rachel's podcast producer. We just wrapped up the I'm Changing the Narrative Soul Retreat and Joy Ball on Amelia Island this past weekend, and we're taking a little bit of time to recover this week. So you'll get to hear from me, and then you'll get to hear some amazing clips from our phenomenal speakers that we had at the first annual I'm Changing the Narrative Soul Retreat. I want to tell you a little bit about the event that we just had. The Soul Retreat was magical. It was the perfect combination of people in the room with the right speakers. Everything about this weekend was exactly as it should be to create a weekend of transformations for our retreat attendees. We had top-notch speakers who poured into people. Our speakers didn't just fly in and fly out. They hung out. They chimed in on each other's presentations. They were with people in the hallways, at the gala. They integrated themselves into the weekend so that everybody could get to know them better and feel something, make significant changes in their lives. We had the most beautiful beach bonfire with singer Laura Reed, who talked to us about dreams. We had a gala with live and silent auctions that raised a good amount of money for mental health resources for I'm Changing the Narrative. And we are so grateful and thankful and happy that we pulled it off. We did it for our first year. The entire weekend was a gathering of people who believe stories can heal and that ordinary people can create extraordinary change simply by choosing to show up fully as themselves. And so today I want to give you a taste of that experience by sharing clips from 3 of our speakers. You're only going to get a glimpse of this powerful weekend here. So I want to remind you that one of the best things you can do for yourself is to show up, to get yourself physically in the room where speakers are talking and people are shaping lives. You want to be in the room where it happens, as they say in Hamilton. And we will be announcing next year's dates in just a few weeks. We've already started dreaming and planning, and you do not want to miss this. I can tell you that already. So today you're going to hear a few clips from Rachel Joy Barbeau, the visionary behind I'm Changing the Narrative. Of course, this is her podcast, so you know that. She also is the person who masterminded this retreat and the Joy Ball. Rachel has this ability to walk into a room and immediately make people feel seen. The people who attended the retreat were changed this weekend, and that's because her message is rooted in faith, vulnerability, and radical love, reminding us that changing our own narrative starts inside our own stories. Next, you're going to hear a clip from me where I share part of my own journey, how life's plot twists can either shut us down or invite us into reinvention. I talked about the Yes Life Project, which is my movement to help people learn to say yes to themselves and to live fully after big life changes, and how sometimes the smallest yes, those baby steps, can be what brings in an entirely new chapter for us. And then finally today, you'll hear from Jeremy Newsome, the world's greatest wealth coach, who challenges people to take ownership of their financial lives. He blends mindset, personal responsibility, and action. And his message will push you to take control of your limiting beliefs so you can lead an abundant life. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you aren't already, because you'll probably get to hear from a few more of our speakers next week. Each of the people you'll hear from today come at it from a different angle, but together they all point to the same truth. Transformation doesn't happen when everything is easy. It happens when we're willing to listen, to reflect, and courageously choose a new story. So settle in, listen not just with your ears, but with whatever part of you might be ready for a shift. Open those hearts, and let's start with Rachel.
You got to have dreams. You got to have goals. All these things that we're talking about this week, I thought about it last night and this morning. I said, what do I want to teach on this morning? And I said, man, we're teaching about all these different things. I said, but I need to teach them how to get in touch with their own soul, because this is called a soul retreat. You can't do all these things if you're not good here. How many people get all the things that they want and they've sacrificed their family? That's why I love what he teaches, and I'm sure he'll touch on it today. They make all the money in the world, they make all the stuff in the world, and they've sacrificed their kids, their friends, their family, or their health. And then they got all the money and they think it's going to make them happy, and it won't make them happy. The first time I went into a maximum security prison, it was 2.5 hours away. I had no makeup on. And what I wrote was, fear sweat's got a different smell than regular sweat. Okay? And when a woman starts sweating on her upper lip, it's also like serious business. Like, you might need to just move it out, get out of the way. And so I look bad, I smell bad, and I'm terrified. And the pastor told me that set this up. In men's maximum security prison, I had been being called for a couple of years. Remember, we talked about yesterday, optometrist. You may not see it yet. Like Jess said, she's in the waiting room. She's in the waiting room. She can't wait to get in there, right? And so I'm driving. I've got my talk, because all you can take in is, you can't take keys, you can't take anything, you can't take nothing but your ID and a panic button and a Bible. That's all you can take, okay? And so I've got my talk in there. I've got my talk in my Bible. I've got it stuffed in there. I've got all the things. And I'm listening, because I love history. I'm listening to just something on World War II on YouTube as I'm driving, right? And it flipped over to the next story, Solomon, and it was about a man named Luz Long. And we were talking about him last night, but a man named Luz Long who assisted Jesse Owens in the Olympics, very high level, quick story. Now, Jesse Owens thought about not going. You got to think of what's happening in the United States at this time, and what's happening in Germany at this time. Hitler is in power, right? And so we all know the hatred and what he believed in. And so Luz Long is a man in Germany who doesn't believe in Hitler. Okay, you know what history taught me? That I now get to teach other people. I feel Luz on my shoulder say, teach them, Rachel. That there were a lot of young men in Germany and women and people in Germany that did not believe what Hitler believed, and they got lumped in. And so there were points in time in my understanding of history where I just thought Germans during that time bad, right? So the more I studied and the more I dug, so let me back up. So the first time I heard it, and it was so profound on the way into the prison that I scrapped everything that I was talking about, and I said, you can be a Luz Long in prison. I told the story about Luz Long in prison, and the story is he is competing against Jesse Owens. Y'all listen to me. The world will have you believe that people are your competition, and they are not, Jeremy. People are fellow miracles. You are not sent here to compete against her. I don't care if you're in the same field. I don't care. You are sent to lift her up, to help her, to assist her. And the world will tell us that people are competition. They are not. They are your fellow miracles. And how do I know that? Luz Long taught us that, y'all. He is competing against Jesse Owens, okay, in front of Hitler. And they're in the prelims. And some of y'all know this story, so I'm just going to condense it, though. And they're in the prelims, and Jesse's missing the mark. And Luz says, you know what? I see what you're doing wrong. Let me help you. What? He's competing against him. He's competing against him, y'all. And so Jesse takes his advice and he beats him in the finals. Jesse wins gold, Luz wins silver. And here's where the great act of courage comes in. Luz grabs Jesse in front of Hitler, arm in arm, and does a circle around the track. They said Hitler was so pissed he turned his back. And historians will tell you that from him doing that, he could have been put in front of a firing squad. His family could have been killed. He had the courage to thumb his nose and say, you know what? He's my fellow miracle. He's not my competitor. And so while we're asking you to lead, while we're asking you to go for your dreams, while we're asking you to do all the things you're doing, I'm asking you to dig way down deep in your life and look at people as a fellow miracle and not as your competition. That's deep. And I'm asking you to love people that are unlovable. And that's hard. So back to that Luz Long story, y'all. I get there, I'm late. Get out of the car, sweating, stinking, all that, run up. Pastor's like, he told me later, he said, I knew you were about to pull out. I knew you were scared. I said, yeah, I was. I said, I thought, because the devil was on my shoulder on that ride saying, you are an idiot. What are you doing? You go here, you go there. You little girl trying to go into a men's maximum security prison. What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Fear was like, and what I tell y'all yesterday, if it's like, other than the illegal kind of fear, and you should be fearful, fear is probably an indicator that you're on to the right thing. All right? Fear is an indicator that you're on to the right thing. Jeremy talked about that yesterday. And then the limiting beliefs, man, the limiting beliefs. So we go in there and I start talking to these men. And these men are in a separate ward. I think there's 178. So I'm not general population. I'm not at the Johnny Cash, singing to Jenny Pop. And so I go in there, terrified, all the things, and they start, and there's a prison ministry band. And there's a guy, y'all, and he is playing the keyboard, and he is playing, and joy is coming up off of him. And my pastor leans over to me, and he says, and I'm like, gosh, that's so beautiful. And he goes, isn't it? He goes, isn't it a shame he'll never get out? And he said he murdered somebody a couple of years back. And I said, yeah. I said, he may never get out, but he ain't incarcerated in his soul. I found joy in a prison, y'all. Y'all will find joy in the most. I'm to the point in my life in this saver culture, I can find joy with the right person in a ditch. I can find joy with myself in a ditch, y'all. Full-on conversations with myself.
I've had some hard times. And so I looked at myself and I'm like, what tools did I use during those times to pull myself out of it? So these became my survival strategies. These are the coping strategies I've used throughout my whole life. They're called the 6 P's of a Yes Life. And we've talked about a ton of these. Rachel touched on many of them this morning. But your people are your lifeline. You have to have people in your life. What do we know about the blue zones? In the blue zones where people live the longest, community, people. I mean, that's a requirement. We need that to survive. So, people, physicality. If you do not take care of your body, you cannot thrive. What else do we know about exercise? Exercise is a great antidepressant. It helps us just get back in touch with ourselves. It elevates the endorphins. So you need to move. You need to give yourself proper nutrition. You need people like, where's Jess? We need people like Jess. I mean, that's part of physicality, is taking care of your body. Perspective. Rachel talked a ton about perspective, and I have a picture I'm going to show you in a little bit, but just being able to ask yourself, can 2 things be true at once? What is something else that can be true? Looking at it from, is this part of a bigger story for my life, or is this just looking at it from all angles, zooming in, zooming out. Presence, being able to, this is what Lindsay's been talking about, mindfulness, being present. Rachel likes to say, being where your feet are. Can you be right here in this moment? Somebody mentioned this the other day when we were at the beach, and you see Jen. We get to the beach, and what's the first thing Jen wants to do? Run to the beach and put her feet in. Did you guys notice last night at the bonfire? Jen, Solomon, some of the people ran straight to the beach again. People who have been around the beach quite a little bit longer, not so much. So, it was like, but she was being present. I think sometimes we go about our lives and we forget, we have our blinders on. We take everything around us for granted. And being able to be present where your feet are, Rachel talks a lot about being a noticer, to notice your surroundings, to notice the people, Rachel talks about running toward the fire, running toward the people. That's all part of presence. Purpose. We all want to have purpose. That can be starting a movement. It can also be just the reason we get out of bed. And, you hear about people in retirement. A lot of times after people retire, they start to decline because they lost their purpose. Their purpose was to get up and go to work. My dad retired at 80. He was a banker. He is phenomenal at what he does. They have him come back 5 hours a week. So he actually has a meaningful task that he performs in that 5 hours. But also a lot of times they go out to lunch and it's just party time for everybody. It gives him a reason to get out of bed in the morning, and he is actually fulfilling a useful thing. So, Miranda, you mentioned this yesterday. I am with you in this. I will forever say my greatest purpose in life is my children. I mean, they are my world. I have 3 very great children, and I'm so proud of what they've done. And raising great humans, I agree. That is my number 1 purpose in my life. So purpose, it can just be the reason you get out of bed. It doesn't have to be some big calling. And play is the one I'm going to talk about a little bit more. So I want to backtrack 4 years ago. We're going to get divorced. And this happens as my youngest daughter is leaving for college. My other 2 are already grown up, having their own lives. So all of a sudden, I have been a mom for over 2 decades. I had been married for 32 years. My identity, everything that I've known, goes just falling out, crashing in the matter of, a couple weeks. I mean, husband leaves, the kid leaves, and I am just sitting there alone at night going, I don't have food to cook for anybody. I don't have laundry to do for anybody. I don't have a calendar to manage for anybody, which actually sounds really good, right? If you're a mom with a bunch of kids. But at nighttime, I was like, what am I supposed to do with myself? So I started watching television, and I started watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy. There's over 20 seasons of Grey's Anatomy. So I started watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy, and I was like, feeling like they were my surrogate family. I was developing these relationships. I was really invested in these people. Eventually, I realized that is just not really a healthy thing to do. And so I did what all of us do when we find ourselves with our identity and purpose gone. Every emotionally stable woman does this. I just know it. I watched a documentary about a 340-mile race across the state of Missouri in a kayak. It's called the MR 340. You have 85 hours to finish it, and you're in a kayak or a canoe or some kind of boat. The fastest people will finish it in about 35 hours. But mere mortals, it takes us a little bit longer. But it's still, I watched this documentary. It is the craziest, most insane thing. There's a boat that follows you down the river called the Reaper. You have to stay ahead of the Reaper, otherwise you're out. And if you grew up along the Missouri River, I grew up in Omaha and then I moved to Kansas City. You were taught to fear the Missouri River. It has speaking of where, about a 3-mile-an-hour current. It's not a river you play in. And so I watched this documentary and I'm like, this is the most unhinged thing I've ever seen. And then I'm immediately like, sign me up. So I signed up for this race. Had I ever kayaked before? Not really. Did I own a kayak? No, did not own a kayak. Had I ever camped? Camping is part of this. Nope, never camped, not once in my life. My husband used to say that I was more of a 5-star hotel girl, which is a little bit true. I mean, I do like the plush robe and the mimosas on the balcony and the room service. But throughout this process, I also learned that I can poop in the woods. I can pee in a boat. I can. And I can take my camp stove and cook a gourmet meal now, like I am doing Top Chef on the side of the river. All new skills I learned. So this is my birthday weekend. I got my new boat. That was a process in itself, learning how to load the boat up there by myself. I named my boat Happily Ever After because it was my divorce story. It was my little how I was coping with my life. And then there I am on Easter weekend that year, very first time I took it out. It was cold. So throughout the course of the summer, I learned how to camp. I learned how to cook those fancy meals, and I met these amazing people. This is the very first time that we went out on the Missouri River together. I met these amazing people. They are not people that I would have ever said, I want to be your, I would not have picked them out on the street and said, I want to be your friend. So I met these amazing people. They were my lifeline. They are my lifeline. These people have become my second family. They would do anything for me. That's my whole new group of friends that I made that summer because I tried to do something different. So you tell a man that you are going to paddle 340 miles across the state on a river on a kayak. And you get a bunch of them that think they're suddenly your coach. They're going to tell you how it's done. Never mind, that might be the guy who pulled his hamstring while reaching for the queso while watching the Super Bowl game. I met a lot of skeptics, and I would get things like, do you know how far that is? No, Chad. It says 340 miles in the name of the race. I don't know. I thought it was maybe signing up for a pottery class. Kim, your arms are going to hurt. Oh my gosh, that's so far. Your arms are going to hurt. Really? Einstein, I thought I was signing up for a full body massage. And what I came to realize was all of these people that were doubting me were people who, it's their own insecurities. Anytime somebody tells you you can't do what you set out to do, it's their insecurities. That has nothing to do with you. So I just started to, I'm just going to ignore these people. I'm just going to ignore these people. So I do the race. It is the first time in history, this race has been going, I think, 20 years, that they call off the race halfway through. So I only got to do the MR 172. They call off the race halfway through. It was like, there were horrible thunderstorms. You have all these little tributaries. All this debris is coming into the river, and it requires paddling through the dark. And so we have all these things that you're having to dodge now. And so they canceled it because it just wasn't safe. But my little crew, we were all super proud of ourselves for making it that far. So we had to go back and finish it the next year. And I did go back the next year, and we finished it. And I upgraded my boat. That's my little pink boat. Upgraded my boat again for this coming year. I'm going to do it again this summer.
How long did it take you?
74 hours.
How long was you paddling through the dark?
Yeah, and then you have a crew. You have a crew because you have to have somebody that will pass you your food and your drinks because you have to have your food replenished. So he would pass me my food and my drinks, and he would set up where I was going to sleep. We would decide where I was going to stay for the night because you just kind of go until your body can't go, and then you figure out how you're going to meet your crew and you sleep on the ramp. I was actually thinking of you. So this is what she called type 2 fun yesterday. There's nothing fun about it in the moment, but when we do hard things. So that is my story of my divorce, how I found myself, found my people, found something hard to do. And it was the most empowering thing that really changed how I thought about myself, who I was, my friendships, everything. It was my lifeline throughout going through this hard time.
We're here to talk about money. And we're here to be open about it. We're here to be transparent about it. And one of my biggest goals, and the word perfectly sums it up, changing the narrative. I would love for someone here to change the narrative and potentially a belief that you have around money, around investing, around currency, around your self-worth, around the knowledge on how to invest or how to get started or how to go bigger or how to scale. I will share with you my story, but the good news is if you're looking to do something with money, I've done all of it and lost all of it already. So I know what not to do really well. I'm really good at figuring out what doesn't work. And after like 20 years, you start doing the opposite of that, and then it starts to work. Now, here's the best news. Who here is too old to do this? Good. No hands went up. You still got tons of time, my man. Tons of time. We all still got a lot of time. So if you feel like you've missed out, good. You did. Now you get to go, all right, I'll forgive myself. Move on. Say, hey, God, sorry. My bad. I didn't see. This time, I'm gonna do my best to listen. I'm not gonna promise. I'm just gonna do my best. Give me some grace. We ever asked for grace before, or is it just me? Because every day, I'm like, just give me a little bit of grace. And we start being very intentional with our words, and we have utmost integrity to our money, and to our vision, and to our plan. If you do those two things, I assure you, you will all become liquid millionaires in the next 5 years. Liquid millionaires, not just millionaires on paper. US dollars in the bank account. US dollars in the bank. It's a different type of millionaire, right? Because you can't eat equity.